entendi. Pode focar na Ariane. Aproveitando, já que pegou, Ariane, você...
Welcome to the first edition of the Amazon Bioeconomy Innovation Investment Forum. This is brought to you by the Initiative on Agreement for the Amazon and the Interstate Consortium of Sustainable Development of Legal Amazon. We understand that the Amazon diversity contains unique and essential elements for the whole humanity to live better. Not only the fauna and flora are important for the health, but the regulation of the climate of the world, but its people, its culture, its arts, its soil, its waters, the cities and communities. We believe that keeping the Amazon sustainable and living involves everyone and everything that is here. We need to preserve the biodiversity, use science and technology allied with sustainable development, always looking at better conditions of life for everyone who lives here. We want not only to keep the forest standing, we want more standing forests, more biodiverse and sustainable, and less social and territorial inequalities. We understand that the Amazon bioeconomy and the commercial and economic activities from this biodiversity is a great ally to these sustainable developments that we look for. That's why I invite you to participate in the Amazon Bioeconomy Investment Innovation Forum. We want to bring new voices to this debate. We want to know different experiences and looks. We want to find synergies and pathways for a more prosperous and resilient Amazon. These are conversations for everyone. Those who look for investments, those who look for options to invest, those who propose public policies, and everyone who wants to understand more about the Amazon bioeconomy. So shall we? Hello, everyone. Hello, good morning. We are going to start now the Alternative Proteins panel. My name is Gustavo Guadagnini, Director of the Goods Institute Brazil, Good Food Institute in Brazil. And I'm very happy that we are able to do this panel today. I met the Secretariat team in Brazil once when we were starting to connect the topic of alternative proteins with the biodiversity in the Amazon. We grew an important partnerships, and now I'm very happy to be able to bring this panel with such important contents to our public. I want to start saying that for all the scientists that are here connected with us, the GFI has an open program to finance research that wants to develop vegetable ingredients for the Amazon. So I invite you to visit our blog, gfi.blog.br/blog. The first news that you can see there is the notice that you can see there. So this our objective here. We brought different voices that represent different facets of this debate of the Amazon biodiversity. We want to have representatives of the private sector, we have thinkers, people who are totally involved with this topic that we are going to discuss and understand this challenge. How do we connect this Amazon biodiversity with the sector of alternative proteins that wants to bring not only the territorial and local development, but cooperate with the sustainable extractivist policies, which preserve the living forest. We want to use different Amazon ingredients to keep the forest standing. So today we have two panelists and two commentators. We have four people talking to us about this topic. Each one of them will bring their own experience, and they are going to ask questions to one another, and then we are going to have questions from the audience that are coming from the YouTube. So I will start introducing our first panelist, Ariane Kluczkovski. Today, the most important part is people's last name here. So Ariane Kluczkovski, if I mispronounce some names, you can correct me, please. She's a pharmacist and with a postdoctorate in food science by the University of Santa Catarina in the area of mycotoxins in food, with focus on Brazilian nuts. She's a researcher and professor of the Federal University of Amazonas and coordinator of the core of toxicology of food, nectar. She acts in the areas of food development since 2000, and among the products studies are the protein concentrated of alligators, the proteins, flowers of plant-based medicines, and the powder milk of Brazilian nuts. So, Ariane, you have 10 minutes. Thank you. Thank you very much. I want to thank for the invitation to participate here. So can you see my screen? Yes, it's perfect. We can see it. So it is a great pleasure to represent the Federal University of Amazonas here in this event. I wish everyone can enjoy all these topics that we discuss here. So when we initially talked about what to talk about, and I thought about bringing my experience about what we did in developing this protein food. And I included here the technical viability of alternative proteins in our region. So we have a whole discussion about the hunger in the world. And in the last data, we have to think about numbers this pandemic brought to us, a number of people that were affected, a number of deaths, and this number is close to 9 million people all over the world. In this report of found 9 million people affected by hunger in 2020. So in this context of needs of new sources or alternative sources of proteins, we have tried to evaluate in our region, in our study group, to evaluate what we can do in order to contribute to these alternative sources. So in this whole context of sustainability, we mention always the need of the efficiency of the use of the natural resources, the full use of the inputs, a lot of that we have. We have to pay more attention to engage, to recycle, reuse, and reorganize, and rethink everything that we have, that we use, every way that we use the natural resources, and to make the consumer aware of their role in the consumption chain. So one of the examples, a practical example that we have is because we are starting to work with the reuse, the reutilization of bugs as proteins, but we can mention as an example in this new way of thinking, this new mindset of reuse of proteins. So we have here this necessity to rethink this use and assess how much we spend using the protein, the standard protein source that we have, and how much we spend from our natural resources, and how much we can stop consuming these natural resources if we use other things. But this is not a class, of course, it's just for you to get to know. The proteins are necessary to our organism, both human and animal organisms. They are made by amino acids. They are necessary for the metabolism. And I included here just for us to understand that we had recommended ingestion rate. It's 50 grams of proteins a day to feed our organs, and to understand in practice in the consumption of eggs, we have 13.3 grams of proteins. When we talk about the regional foods, especially the Brazil nuts, for those who know me, you know that I have a history of more than 20 years working with the Brazilian nuts. And in the Amazon region, 14.5 grams in 100 grams of proteins. We can have the equivalent or even more if we were consuming eggs. So there's no doubt that this is a wealth, and I brought here 3 examples of sources from our region. So we have Spirulina, which is an example that is being worked on in the state of Pará. Here in our study model, we haven't worked with this material, but basically Spirulina has gained a lot of strength because its throughput offers from 55 to 70% of proteins. So it is obtained via microalgae, and it is already regulated. The use is allowed. So it's very important. There are many different kinds of research as the use of biomass. So it provides vitamins, minerals. And then we reached Brazilian nut. That is my focus, my strongest focus from my study. And we developed, with the project and the support of FAPIAN, the milk and the powdered milk of Brazil nut. So this product is very well known by the amount of protein that it has, and we managed to develop a product that is the powdered milk. And here we can see, in terms of comparison, the almonds is 13.19%, the semi-unfattened pie, and then we go to 30% with the extract. So you can see that this is a product that comes from the forest. It is interesting for the issue of sustainability, but for our discussion, the special focus is the technology. We need to process, we need to do something that is not very well accessible in the handicraft production. We need industrial scale equipment. So this is an important part of this process. But it is a very interesting product for the industry, but we have to think of a product that is interesting for the community worker. We can press this pie or retrieve the oil and remain with the dry part. So we have to assess this not only for the industry, but the other product is the proteins from the exotic meat. So we made a work with the meat of alligators. It was a master's degree process. And in this illustration, we could map the whole animal to see how much proteins we have in each part of their body. And we compared with other species of alligators that were tested in other countries. And we can see that the Amazon alligators also provide a lot of proteins. So it is a good source of proteins. So in this product part, in these illustrations, we can see that it is possible to kill the animals within what is regulated by the regulation. So it is a protein source. The dry product, it's not the same, but it's very similar to our fish pirapuí. We have another species of fish, and this is a good alternative that we can use with the product. So in order to conclude my speech here, what we see as bottlenecks and perspectives. So it is necessary an organization of these community networks so the technological difficulties and challenges, not only the equipment can be corrected, can be overcome, and the logistics. The logistics is a challenge for the draining of the products after they become a final product, and we have to overcome the limit of supplies. In the case of the obtention of the concentrated of the Brazilian nuts of the powdered milk, we needed to use an additive so the product can reach that level of protein. So we need to evaluate what types of packaging that we have to use and what are the legal aspects that we are subject to so the product can become commercially viable. And it can be viable for those who produces. So this is the conclusion. Proteins is good for everyone. And thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to you.
Thank you, Ariane. It's a very interesting topic. See how much content there is on that. I'm impressed to know about the exotic meat. And we already work with cultivated meat to make meat from cells. Dr. Tatiana challenged us to do that with the manatee, to do that from the cells. And with alligator, I think we can bring this to my world and see that we can have a lot of interesting opportunity with the Amazon species. Congratulations on your work, on your research, and we'll have you a little later back here. So next panelist is Josiane Otaviano Vinene. Is an indigenous woman known as Josie Tikuna. She's a researcher and anthropologist, graduated by the University of Amazonas. She's a coordinator of the AgroVida project. I'll ask her to pronounce the name, which is Earth and Life. She works with the values of indigenous lands, human rights, and restoration of the indigenous culture and empowerment of women. She lives in the municipality of Benjamin Constant within the indigenous lands. If you can tell us what's the pronunciation of the name, I thank you. Welcome. Good morning, everyone. As Gustavo introduced me, I work with agroecology. This is the pronunciation, Gustavo. This is the production of earth and life. It has been developed since 2016 through 2019, and its focus is sustainability, to have the restoration of native cooking, how things were the old days, as nothing was lost in the forest, nothing was wasted. This habit of storing things, what you say about the alternative proteins, it has been worked on for a long time. And with time, it's changed due to the influences that have been introduced in the indigenous communities. And we have been forgetting how to value the food, the fishing, hunting, cure through medicinal plants, and nothing should be left behind. But today, the project comes in very timely manner to have this restoration of what has been lost. to use what we have in the Amazon in a sustainable way. This is the way that the women which are involved in this project work. Restoration of the indigenous family agriculture. We have the objective of potentializing that in each community where the project has been developed, we start to realize that we are living a very difficult moment, and the food that is industrialized, that are reaching the villages, brings serious problems. As Ariane put very well, talking about the alligator and the bodó are the favorite dish from the people for the people who live around the Solimões River. This is very important for us to strengthen that we can work on this in a sustainable way, thinking about the possibility of not ending what is in the Amazon. When we talk about protein, alternative proteins, and reusing everything, go back to the way things were. I remember my grandfather, before he left, said that the old days everything was plenty, lots of meat, lots of fish, manatees. Now this is lost. Even vegetable oil, don't see it anymore. We buy industrialized oils. Oil from the alligator, for an example, could work on that. It's a way of thinking, working this issue, that people learn how to reuse everything around them. So it's important for us to talk about this, and the project worries about that. Worry about basic sanitation because everything is connected. When we talk about alternative proteins, everything is connected. Everything is on the same boat. The biggest issue we face here in our region are the influences that don't contribute with anything. For example, this forum that we are participating today, me as a representative of the women agriculture, thank you for the opportunity and how you are showing value to the work, that we can have publicity on this work. And as the insects, like Professor Ariane said, us Tikuna, we eat that, and we have been doing that for a long time. I don't know if you know the saúva, it's a type of ant. We also eat them. This is something we need to rescue. Something that together we can work on. Ariane, your work is very important. I like it very much. I would like to do something deeper in our project. So this is why I need to finish this project so we can show the results of what we have been working on, just like you did. And I'm pretty sure that soon we'll be able to show and to point where the problems are and how we have been working in the rescue of the native cooking. Shouldn't be lost. We need to rescue all this. So this is the way we have been working. With the advancement of the research, we will surely be able to change a lot, which is for the common good of the indigenous populations and the world. We are here to make this difference. I think that's it, Gustavo. Excellent, Josiane. Thank you. See that these projects, such as yours, are a very important example for everybody who are trying to do some work on the region of learning with the people who are doing that longer time. You guys have an example here for all the projects that tend on impacting the region. Congratulations on your work, on your leadership, on the project, with all the attributes that you bring. It's a very interesting project. Thank you very much. We want to know more about the project, so we'll have questions later. But first, I would like to pause here to call for the graphic representation. They're very fancy here. We have beautiful illustrations. So we have this graphic representation here. It's a visual way of organizing the information that have been shared throughout the event. When we use this resource not only to record the memory, but also to take a look at it globally. All of this can be accessed later on the website of the event and on the Página 22 website as well. What we see here now, done by Clara Daré. Thank you very much, Clara, for this graphic representation. And congratulations for the event, for sharing this. It will make it much easier for us to understand and take a look at it later. Okay, guys, so now we'll go on to our first commentator. She will talk about the work she has been doing and then ask questions for our panelists. If you think that the season of difficult names is over, no, you're wrong. Now we have Joanita Karoleski. She's a president, she consultant of the Mulheres do Varejo Institute. She was CEO of Seara for 5 years, and she has been leader of the Fazer Bem Faz Bem project. She gathered a lot of money for COVID, and she graduated by the Blumenau University. She started her career at Bunge, where she worked for over 30 years. She's bringing her experience in to tell us what she's been doing in the JBS Fund and to exchange experience with our other panelists. Joanita, you have the floor. Thank you, Gustavo. Good morning, everyone. I'm very proud to be here. So, with such great company, Josiane, with all the regional and situation, Rodrigo, my colleague, the JBS Amazon Fund, we are at a very interesting moment here, especially with Ariane and Josiane saying what they did. We start with 250 million on the first 5 years, and we want to reach 1 billion by 2030. And it's a private initiative fund, but it's non-profitable. We want to foster the sustainable development of the Amazon and to seek improvement of the communities who are there. Josiane, I'm very happy when you talk about the women issue. We were talking about indigenous and riverside communities and inclusion of women, and it works on 3 pillars. So restoration and conservation of the forest, socioeconomical development, and now we're looking at the opportunities of bioeconomy and biodiversity, how we can leverage businesses, and how can we do it together with the communities. So the comments you bring and what we have been hearing, this is very new for me. I've been doing this for only 9 months now. And we can see this great opportunity of developing together, observing culture and habits, potentializing the products that are in the Amazon. The third pillar, because we strongly believe that we cannot make this without science and technology. So Ariane, when you talk about the project, this research, how important it is for us to really do what we do. So the work we do is getting to know, and I'm learning and a lot with you, and starting to take a look at how we can create new opportunities. One started project of a network, maybe. One is the agroforest system, which is the combination of cocoa, and the other one is açaí. We want to seek improvement of life for the communities in Amapá and to seek this aggregated value to the product. And this is the potential that what we can potentialize. And the third is fishing. Pirarucu and other fish, and maybe alligator can come in this. This is the opportunity that maybe we can work on. We look at all the chains and how we can use residues, and many times they end up not being reused. I like your R's, and if we think about circular economy, this is where this opportunity comes in. With science and technology, we can surely do that.
But we know that in the Amazon, there are some different structuring things. So 3 of the products that were in the portfolio that we are going to work in the development of taking credit to the producers. Pronaf today has the opportunity, the less than 1% that is invested in the small producers. So we are going to work with technical assistance and credit agents in order to prepare the small producers to access this credit. We are going to carry out a project with the Widows that launched on a startup accelerators. So the idea is that for 5 years, every year we'll launch 5 startups and be able to potentialize the Amazon business, and a partnership with Embrapa, looking at the native species that can reduce the carbon emissions that can be used in LPF systems. But also we have a demands to them about the plant-based. So what are the alternative proteins that we have? And we do have an opportunity of a possible joint work here. Because by contextualizing, especially what Ariane brought, we can see Brazil as a great opportunity looking at the Amazon. We have the market of products coming from the Amazon of 176 billion, and Brazil participates with 1.6% of that. So if we can potentialize that, I think it's important to discuss why we can't accelerate and do this. Look at all the opportunities that we are bringing and keeping the results of the chains in the Amazon, because this is an important point for us to analyze. When we look at the ecosystems, it is a new number to me, but we have more than 58 colleges and universities in the Amazon and more than 200 graduate courses. So why can't we make this environment more entrepreneurial or more innovative? So maybe we can discuss a little bit about this, because civil society, private sector, and the governments can see a good opportunity of a joint work. We from the fund, myself, Andrea Azevedo, that came from this environment to help build the solutions, we are looking at this, and I think this is the great opportunity. But now, talking about the questions, I think Ariane included in her presentation all the bottlenecks, and this is what we feel. But one of the things that we have problems with, and I say as a fund, so let's access a business intelligence to know what needs to be done in each one of the chains, in each one of the networks. I think the first challenge, and it generates here, how can we organize, how can we access this information, especially with Ariane speaking, so we can create this movement. Ariane, are you there? Well, I think First, we have to understand what we can collaborate with, what we can contribute. I have a deep respect. When I started talking about authorization and all the techniques to reach the powdered milk, for example, first I have to understand what the community worker needs. I don't know if I will answer your question, but we have to try to bring to a context of what the community worker needs, and we from the technical part, how can we meet that expectation? Another point is, in the issue of education that you mentioned, how we are going to engage the new community worker. I'm going to give an example of the Brazil nut. We have the whole need to settle the youngsters in these communities. Because the sons and the grandsons of nut workers, they prefer to go to the city to work as a street vendor. So we have to find ways to educate them and to make them engage and to bring this innovative and entrepreneurial spirit to keep them in the forest. I don't know if that is the sense that you asked your question, but I see that we need to come up with policies that engage the population, and we can take whatever they need. Here we are in this end. When I was presenting, I was thinking that this is not a class. I'm not going to talk about techniques. I put technical viabilities in the title of the proteins, but how will these be useful to the community workers? My social role is not only to bring a technique to JBS to say, you know, this is a new product and this is a project that's going to be used and you will have a patents. That's not it. Our intention, I know that I was bothered by this, that we need to give back these technologies to those who are providing this material to us. Is that it? Yes, exactly in this regard, because what you said is very important. And this is what I said that we intend to do. It's not only creating a product, but creating a context. And yesterday I was looking at some of the panels from last week. What caught my attention was that Claudio was saying that he performed a research with the young people from the Amazon, asking them what would make them not leave there to go to the cities. And they said they was expecting the answers from education and health, and the answers were intriguing. They want broadband connection. So when we look at that, when we hear that, this is what you brought here. And Josiane can talk about this as well. But we have to take these, respecting their own cultures, to make them develop in their own ecosystems. It's not only about taking things from outside. So you are from the South. I am also from the South. Yes, I'm from the Amazon. Yeah, but you've been here before, so yes. Yes, my postdoc was in the University of Santa Catarina. So these, I've been working with Brazil nuts for a long time. But it's exactly that. We don't want to take there and find out or take solutions to their problems. We have to find out how they can solve their own problems. How can we work with the communities? These three projects that we are working on, the acai and the fishing and the cocoa, I think this is a great learning that we'll have the fund, because we have to work with the population. So we are not working directly with the fund. We are working with different institutes and bodies with our experience. And another important thing that I would bring for us to reflect on is how can we generate this infrastructure and generate scale. When we think at this business and to become exporters, and certifications and lab, we see all the challenges and the barriers that to meet the expectations of Europe, to serve Europe. How do we structure this properly with the right time, with the right resources, especially with the issue of education? So when we have this mature, we can explain this to the territories, because this is a business that we are replicating from one state to the other. There is a huge difference. Find out what makes sense in each region, so we can create this scale and make this economic development that we are talking about. But going back to the broadband connection, we have a challenge. This is a challenge that it might seem basic, more basic than what we think. You talk about the Brazil nuts. The powdered milk, I consider that it is a great ingredient to many products that we have today. And this is, you talked about the bottleneck of technologies. I don't know if you can talk more about that. And I also would like to hear from Josiane what she thinks are the main barriers for us to work with the communities, especially in the case of women. Well, the powdered milk, we have the need to have an equipment that requires energy and physical structure. We can produce the milk in a spray dryer, but this equipment transforms the liquid in powder, but that requires technicians and resources to make the maintenance of the equipment, to rebuild this production. And in order to take this technology to the community workers or to the community, we have many other bottlenecks that I included in the end. We have electric energy, logistics, the type of maintenance, and how we are going to store this product, the package. So it is a high potential product. It is highly viable. The first steps are already taken in case the industry wants, but until what extent it is better than the other nut milk. So if you talk to Josiane, she said exactly that it's not. It's better to take the nuts and make the milk from the fresh seeds. But this shows that there are all these instabilities, and we have to think on a big company like yours to put together an equipment that worth millions in the community. We have other examples of the Brazil nuts, when the Brazil nuts is changed the way that we broke the nuts. We had some good initiatives of co-ops that couldn't handle the market. We put together the physical structure, but the first part of the production, how do the co-ops are going to organize themselves to do that? So it's not only about bringing the structure, we need to engage the population in using this structure. One important thing is what we are doing here. I didn't want to say bottlenecks, not being able to provide the right amounts that the Europeans want. This is a bottleneck, but we do not have all the amounts that are necessary. We don't have the raw material, but we don't have a volume of production. We still can't provide this to a customer that wants tons of products. So we do need to start with these conversations here, with forums that can open the minds of the owners of the plants. And so we don't need to sell only the Brazil nuts packaged in a small package. So there are many other possibilities for us to work with the same product. Even with the alligator meats, we need regulation from the environmental agencies. So maybe we can find other options. So I leave these questions here to you. The milk from the Brazil nut, it is the original one, but we have also an alternative products. Well, we have 2 minutes from the previous presentation, so I think Josiane can mention something about this question.
And I can't hear you yet. I think the audio is open now. I can hear you, Josiane. She's having connection problems. Okay, let's go on to our next commentator, and then we'll go back to Josiane for her comment. Beautiful to see the work of the JBS Fund will have a lot of prosperous years because of this incentive you are bringing. Congratulations on leading these initiatives that will be very impactful. So I want to call Rodrigo to the floor. So we finished our difficult name season, and now I want to have Rodrigo Carvalho here, one of the funders of a Positive Brands company. Called Castanha Jungle Possible, which is vegetable milk with the intent of being accessible. These all use only Brazilian ingredients. He has a degree in administration by UFAM, UFRJ. He's a specialist in strategic marketing and corporate finance. He worked in the finance, automotive, oil, and food industries. So we'll follow the same dynamics here. So I want you to tell us about your work, your projects, and then you have any questions for our panelists. So you have the floor. Thank you, Gustavo. Good morning, everyone. Talking about positive brands, as Gustavo said, we are a company that have a very defined process. We want to bring healthy food to people, bringing quality of life and health from feeding this health that we see that comes from physical exercise as well. So other than people's health, we seek the planet's health. All our products are plant-based, and with this, we already try to decrease the environmental process. We want to reduce the consumption of water and greenhouse effects and the environmental impacts on society. So we also use iRecycle, which is a certification that is in all our packaging. Today, we have 100% of our packaging that are neutralized. We have this commitment with society and the environment. And as Gustavo said, try to use 100% organic ingredients, and most of them Brazilian ingredients in our products, trying to foster all the chain of production and producers and micro producers as well. Today, one of the raw materials that is most used by us, the cashew nut, mostly family producers, small producers. We have a very interesting work with them of fostering through technical consulting of this family agricultures. We certify them as organic so we can have a better sales price for these producers. Also seeking for them to have a more sustainable practice with the environment in the production. We have been expanding this production with the coconut as well, which is another ingredient that we have been using a lot. We also use a lot of tapioca, which is manioc flour, with our isotonics. It's very natural. It doesn't use any type of addictive. It comes from the tapioca and coconut water, juices. We are testing with acai now, and we have been trying to bring the strength of the foods of the plants, as we try to say it, to join this productive universe so we can have really healthy products. Our focus is no doubt research and development. Many times it's difficult for us to reach an ingredient or raw material that would be interesting, especially because of the challenges that are still there in the fields where the production is actually made, because of logistics or maybe lack of possibilities of being able to do that in a more professional way, looking through the lens of the industries, some minimal certifications so we can put these products into the market. And as Ariane said, there are some initiatives for us to do the powdered almond milk. We try to work with that as well, and I already asked here if there is interesting from your part for us to work together on this powdered Brazil nut milk, and always seeking to use as much as natural and Brazilian ingredients as we can, organic as well, for us to foster all this chain of production with people from our land, people who need this growth. And we don't want this growth to be artificial. We want for it to be through work, for it to be accompanied by the future, and not that growth that we basically give money for the person to survive. We believe the way for the better future goes through a society where people can really have continuity on their work and on their growth, for it to happen in the long term, not only in the short term. Thank you, Rodrigo. I just wanted to inform you that Josiane will keep her camera off so we can have better connection here. So your question is about the powder nut milk. So I thank you for the invitation, and I accept it very happily, because in the model we have been working on, by my personal standards, I said that I would not be involved only with the scalability issue. It doesn't motivate me anymore. So to associate with causes, as Joanita said, we want to do something different with this whole industrial revolution. So this project, talking about this powdered nut milk, we have this 1.5 year project with partnership with the company, but they didn't want to go on with this research path. So the product is on our hands, and in the beginning it wasn't very good. We want to have more work done on that, and it's important for us to bring here that the Brazil nut is not only a problem, a commercial problem with all the mycotoxin contamination issue. Cashew nut doesn't have so many reports with contaminations as the Brazil nuts, but we are able to see with if the protein level, and we have to talk a little more on that, if we were able to, in a more simpler way, to solve the toxicology issue with the cashew nut. Because what we have on our Brazil nut milk, I'm thankful to God for working with such a rich product as the nut with so much selenium that it can reach toxic levels. So we have to solve these technical bottlenecks with the powder milk itself. So we don't have a product with too much selenium for the consumer. So because we were able to notice high levels of toxins as well. So we have to solve some of these technical issues and keep observing that. So when the industry comes to foster the researcher to have a product made, this is also a health concern. If my daughter is going to drink this milk, if some elderly people are going to have this milk, so will it reach the community? For them to have their opinion, it's not just like the mixed nut milk, but so we have to rethink what is feasible for us as the industry, but also as the consumer of that product. So you can talk on that to really develop these drinks because we have a huge potential, and it doesn't, I'm not motivated only by the soy. As a citizen, as a mother, as a teacher, I try to foster this thought on my students. See what you consume in simple chocolate milk or only ingesting soy. So we have to assess what are the nutrients we are ingesting and who you are favoring with this consumption. When our first brand was created, one of the fundamental paradigms that we had to break was to make products that had no stabilizers and conservatives. And the great bottlers told us we wouldn't be able to do that. So a few years later, we were able to do that. And we were one of the first companies in the world to have vegetable milk without additives. With Brazil nut, and we know that it took several years for us to do that. So we have to persist. That eventually we will be able to do not only what the market needs, but what the people need, and to reach what is the most important for them to have a high density nutritional product. Let's try to listen to hear Josiane now. And Josiane, if you could comment on the discussion that we are having here. If you have anything to add, please.
You are on mute, Josiane. Hello, can you hear me? Yes, okay. Okay, so when Juanita asked the questions, what can they offer? What type of support we can receive? I think that's when we mentioned logistics and all the bureaucratic processes, when we send the projects trying to participate in the bidding notices, the logistic is always mentioned as a key challenge. And I see that that this is a lack of information actually, because if the women from Belém, from the Solimões River, I don't know if you heard this Mapana Association, that are women who deliver school meals in the communities in 2 different municipalities. So these women manage to organize themselves and they make this delivery of food to the schools. Here in our region, the only problem, the biggest problem, are 2 important points: logistics and transportation. The transportation and fuels, this kills everyone because here in the region. So in order to potentialize the work of these women inside the community, today, for example, they rescue medicinal plants and they rescue the native cuisine. And this is one of the alternatives that was very well mentioned here in this forum, and how much this for our region is forgotten. Because I think that with this forum today, we can open space as an important step so we can show in which way we can work, being supported and contributing to what we already know inside the community. Because the traditional knowledge are dying. They are going to the cemetery. So my concern today is to rescue all of this. The cure, the culinary, the culture, the arts, the fishing, the activities. How in the past our ancestors, my grandfather, how could they manage the vegetable oil, and this needs to be rescued. And everything that they used to work on sustainably in a way that there is no need to degrade the forest, there is no need to pollute the forest, there is no need to end with our planet. So we have to go back to these traditions. So I think this is wonderful because from this moment on, we can connect and we are being able to speak the same language, especially when I say to the women that this is important, that they have to put this in practice. Here, the women work with the work in the farms, but I see a great potential that the women have to do everything, to do basically everything. So when I go to the villages, they tell me that they need more things to do. But it's not only up to me, I need the support. What Professor Joanita said is very important, the support. And this is one of the opportunities that I have to talk about the project, because the project works not only in theory, but in practice as well. We go to the fields, we rescue the techniques that they use, because I don't take any scientific technique to them. It's funny because they do everything. And in the past, they said, okay, we used to do this in the past. That's how we preserve the elements. We didn't throw anything away, but now people are throwing a lot of things away. So we have to rescue all this knowledge. Perfect, Josiane. Thank you very much. We still have about half an hour with some questions to be asked. I'm going to start in the next round with 2 questions that are very important to our event. We want to understand now what are the implications and the consequences and the short-term recommendations. Looking at the short term, what are the recommendations that you bring? And let's think at the second questions. What is the concrete work agenda that we can start after the discussion of this panel? So asking both questions at the same time so we can connect in one only question, one only answer. So in the short term, what we are going to do, what is the work agenda, what are the implications and the recommendations that you bring? And then I will start with the order of the event. I will start with Ariane, please. Yes, I can answer, but I wanted to highlight that what Josiane said here. In my description, when you talked about me, that I worked with Spunk and Professor Josiane, so we could call Professor Kinupi that he was the father of these organizations in Brazil, and says that we need more people in these areas of the non-conventional agricultural practices. And we start by answering, getting what Josiane said. I've been working with the nuts for a long time, but the issue of approaching to the community worker as a researcher, but that does not motivate anymore. What motivates me is to help the community workers that I can develop a good a product. So the unconventional plant-based foods is how we can do this involving those who are going to provide these alternative proteins, engaging them really, respecting the indigenous culture, approaching Josiane and the women that work with her, how we are going to do this, because you know and we don't. We understand logistics. Joanita will say, yeah, we have the resources to execute this ferry in this way, to make this drain. You need to have these products ready, but who are going to help them to provide the product? So we need a technician and people from the government in order to organize these productive networks. I'm going to use the word network because we mentioned here in the group, because I think that we have to engage the necessity of the proteins, organize these networks throughout our secretaries and our governors, and engaging the industry that's going to receive this material, and legalizing, organizing the legal part, because Juanita can confirm, otherwise we cannot sell this. I will be very close. I will work with the morale of the women in this region. I'm giving the example of Josiane because she is here, but there are many other examples, many other cooperatives that we can mention. And then we will create an expectation and we won't be able to sell it, because in order to sell to Europe or to Germany or Portugal or whatever, I need to have the FR7 2000. I need to comply with some rules and regulations. So we have to connect. But I think this is the first short-term goal that we have, is to have a change in the mindset. These type of discussions, and Rodrigo talking to his workers, so the consumer can notice that it is necessary a different look. I think these opportunities of discussions here, they start all these spaces and show who is going to provide the raw material, the government motivating to provide the legal framework. So in the short term, this is the first change that we need. Now, escaping from my role as a moderator, this shows me the need to invest in science of the ingredients in Brazil, not only structuring the production network, but also knowing how to apply the Brazilian ingredients. There are good ingredients with a lot of potentials that were studied in abroad, and they're underused here. We have a lot of Brazilian plants, a lot of biodiversity to develop ingredients with limited potentials coming from the Amazon region. Josiane, I'm going to call you to comment on the same topic, looking at the short term, recommendations and implications, and what concrete work agenda we can start with after the discussions of this panel.
Just to remind you guys that because due to connection, Josiane is only through audio. Josiane, I can hear you now. Short to long term, I think the most important thing right now is for us to look at the logistics issue, have to look at production, because when we talk about production, indigenous people, women, for an example, until 2016 or 17, planted 4,000 pineapple trees. So we thought, who are we going to sell it to? How will it reach these people? And hear a lot of these topics and sayings that indigenous people are lazy, but this is not true. There's always some type of plantation, some type of agriculture, sugarcane, pineapples, bananas. There was a community who reached out to me. So we are planting coffee now. This is great incentive because it shows that our project is able to sensitize people about logistics and production, who will buy, who will import, how will these women be able to help each other and be helped. This is very important because they are already being involved. We only lack support. Recently, last July, next July, I will go to the communities and have workshops because our project is not only centralized in one thing, it's very wide. We work with basic sanitations and small cultures, rescuing of the food and the culture and the problems that the community is facing health-wise. It's a very wide project. Now the women are my right hand at this project because we are being able to organize ourselves now. We are now being able to make this project mainly done by women. Short term, this is what we have to think about. Perfect, Josiane, thank you. Guys, Rodrigo will have to leave a little bit early because I would like to open the space for him to say goodbye before our last round of questions. So, Rodrigo, if you can comment on this topic, this short-term agenda, what can we do now? What you see as opportunity for this moment? And Joanita, this question is also to you. Then we'll have the questions from YouTube. I'm thankful to participate, guys, here. And I think we have to study a little more about the products and how can we make products that come from our land, Brazilian soil. We have a brand that will launch next month, which is Plant Power, basically focused bringing not chemical supplements, but plant-based supplements. We have some products based on coffee and concentrated coconut, beet. And as it has been mentioned, many products have gone through analysis and concentration product processes to get the better of each ingredient, but we see a very interesting potential in several other products that haven't been studied yet that maybe we can try to bring to this line, this superfoods group, some kind of concentrated product, many implications, many beneficial implications can bring in a sustainable way through the food, being medicinal, uh, because we have already got studies which are more advanced, but also in cognitive performance, sports performance, some type of performance or benefit and well-being that this product can provide. So we are at your disposal, so we can, as much as we can, work together and see the opportunities that may arise for us to have more and more of these Brazilian and Amazon products in our portfolio. We want to place that at your disposal. This is part of our DNA, and this is what we want to foster from now on. Thank you for your work here, Gustavo. Great hug for all of you, and again, I'm at your disposal. Thank you. Perfect, Rodrigo. Thank you. The characterization of vegetables and plants and having knowledge and how to extract from those. This is one of the focus of our notice that is open. The link is on the chat. So Rodrigo, thank you for your participation in the event. Stay with us as much as you can. We already know you're going to have to leave early, but now we'll have comments on short term by Joanita. I'm going to say very short term. I commit to the fund to have the contact with Ariane, not only looking at the alligator and the nuts and alternative plants. It's very interesting for us to talk about the bottlenecks that are common to all the chains. Very short term, you have my commitment to look together with you guys so we can try to make this feasible. A short term, I understand that all this event of biotechnology and bioeconomy already brings light on the topic that it's very interesting. We are here on this panel, and I know there are several other panels as I watched some of last week, and I think we can look at the main opportunities and get together. University, maybe Embrapa, and Gustavo, this is a provocation here. I know you guys have all the knowledge, especially about applied sciences that is very interesting. So maybe together with you guys, we have been talking because of the fund, but how can we get together with the universities and the main demands to create this demand? And we already defined that we want to work with chains and networks, and we must connect demand with the production. This is the greatest challenge we have. Other opportunities for us to look at the values that we have in each link of this chain and try to increase the value inside the Amazon. So if I think of technology, I need to do that in the Amazon. I need to build the biofactor in the Amazon so I can have the added value to stay inside the Amazon. The certification is another great challenge. I worked with animal protein and know how critical this is for us to have a pattern that is consistent with Europe and the audits. I think that if we bring this experience together, we will have the opportunity. In very short term, my commitment is to talk to Josiane and Ariane. I have the contacts to get this going. And Josiane, I think it's very interesting. You have this women issue on the Açaí project. We have a family school project to make feasible and to increase women participation fishing as well. The pirarucu from the Juruá and other fishing, women process the fish. We want to help to enlarge from 200 to 400 families involved in this project and respecting the way they do it. This is the main issue here. Now, I want to complement this initiative of this event because it brings wealth of opportunities. As the JBS Fund representative, I'm very interested to get to know what has been made available for us to work with the universities, maybe Embrapa, Senai, Sebrae, who are reaching the Amazon now. How can we do this together? Not to eliminate the bottlenecks, but how can we deal with them adequately? To keep the culture, to make the logistics work, this is the greatest challenge. Gustavo, if I can have a minute, I would like to complement what Joanita said. How can we help? How can we the younglings in the community? JBS or other companies can give them the connectivity, and we need fast connectivity for these communities and how to bring this resource. We have to train the people. We have to have grants for them to stay there. They know their fathers and grandfathers worked with nuts all their lives. What do we do with all the peels? Do we throw them out? It's very rich in selenium. So we have to bring technicians there. We can train these youth for them to take a look at this new product part, or to reuse what is left from the nut. So they can have this venture to start to use this residue, knowing that they have this technical support and financial support, so they can from some time on from now they can walk on their own. Even if they know that their parents and grandparents worked in a traditional way, they can do this producing premium product. So this gathering of actors helping the youth to stand on their own. All right, this already answers one of the questions that we had here on how to keep the youth at the region. Talking about, we have a notice that is open to try to fund these researchers to work on the region. And June 23rd, we will have this workshop to understand the financing of exploratory research. The link to the blog is posted by the people from Página 2 magazine, and we invite you to enroll because we want to finance research and collaborate. It's impossible for one person or one organization to do that on their own. Such a complex issue. We have to get together and each doing their part. It's clear that we are going to be able to place Brazil as a potential reference for these products and to have a social impact that's going to be very positive. So we'll enter our last 15 minutes with the questions and with the questions from the audience. So I want to tell everybody here that Josiane lost connection with us. We have been talking about the connection in the region, and started raining there, so she lost the connection. If she is able to reconnect, I'll redirect the questions for her. But for now, I will forward the question for the other panelists. I'll start with Ariane. Is it possible to estimate what the slice of the market that the sustainable economy should conquer to worry about the standing forests in the other biomes? This is from people from W Economia. In our program here in UFAM, there are the foundations that International that are able to work longer with these estimates, and not only to make the estimates, but to realize how our society stands. I don't know if Rodrigo is still there, but he's a representative of this niche to work with plant-based. And I think one of our lessons is we have the number of vegans in the market. My head is not very good with numbers, but this is a rapidly growing market. The first project we did with Fabian is almost 10 years old now. Development of products from the nut. One of our objectives was to widen the market for vegans. In the powdered milk now, when I went to do the report, it was much larger. Vegans, vegetarians, all this public that seek a healthier food source has been growing rapidly. So it also shows that this segment has been growing. It focuses a lot on the soy products, but this is an opportunity for us, for our Amazon proteins to enter this market as well.
I think that Josiane is back. I'm not sure. Josiane, can you hear us? No, maybe not. Okay, adding to what she said, remember that she said that her grandfather used to make the oil of the alligator meat fats. So this is answers another question that someone asked, that how can make the young people stay. But we have an article in this segment of the alligators. He's doctors with the alligator. He's an incentivator of these segments, and this can thrive financially, but he works with a lot of people in this alligator project. So this is what motivates. It's not only selling the meat for $100. It's knowing that you arrived in the community workers that way. So the alligator meat is highly nutritive. There are a lot of omegas, and the throughput of the oil, it needs to go through a treatment in order to be viable for the work of the community workers. To be commercially viable, it can be a competitive of the fish oil that we buy, and there are many different brands. Just to get what Josiane said, and how can we make sure the young people can stay in their original municipalities? There are a lot of work. There is a lot of material that is disposable. For example, the fats and the residues of the alligator meat processing. So this is another thing to think about. So for the young people, talk to your grandfathers and your grandmothers, and so how to know how they used to do it, so we can use the same technique. I'm going to use this time to ask a question that Ariane and Juanita can answer. There is a question, what type of return the communities and the villages needs to have, so this type of partnerships to make sense to the traditional hubs? You were talking about this now, the return, and to understand how this reaches the community, not only the price of sale, but how much they paid. But this return is always financial. Is it expected? What type of return it reaches? Now, first, I would like to add to what Professor Ariane said. This demand is growing. Not only the demand for vegan, vegetarian, flexitarian, but also because the industry of processed needs the green label. The green label assumes that you are using more natural ingredients. So there, I see two big opportunities. I was in Seattle, and we developed in the plant-based in 2018 or 19. But the green label, we started to find preservatives and green products, and this is another potential. When I see that, I think that according to the number that I gave, we are talking about some products, $176 billion, and Brazil participates is only 1%. I think so. The generations X, Y, and Z, when we surveyed in 2018, made very clear the expectations that they have for products about the origin. They need a known origin, the healthability, and the sustainability. So this is in the new generation being demanded, and it goes to the supermarkets, and they're going to look at that in the products that they buy. So this is a recommendation that I made, that we have great opportunities. I do not have the number because we can't compile all the data, but I agree with what Ariane said, that the opportunity is huge. The issue of the communities, this is a great question, because we have been seeing that, okay, let's generate impact. We have the tendency to think about the economic impact. One of the things that we worked on the fund is the issue of what impact I need to generate and that the community needs. We have to think about the threefold: the social, environmental, and economic impact. If you look at this as a crossing way, you are helping the community. First, the environmental thing, that is to preserve the forest, that the forest is values more standing than in the underground. So they have this consciousness, this is awareness. And the social thing. So when we say social, we mention sanitation, health, schools, access to information. And the economic impact is natural because we need to create a survival condition for those communities. And sometimes it's only about adjusting this network or these chains. Instead of selling the nuts with the shells, that we became the leader in export of the shell. So let's process the selenium, let's remove the shell with the residues, and that will generate knowledge, engagement of the community. And I think this can fix, because it's difficult to think, how can we put Wi-Fi network in the whole network, in the whole community? We have to create self-sufficiency on teaching how to do it, to be together in order to make viable. I'm not teaching anything, but they know how to do it. It's just support with the resources, but throughout the years, we can create this self-sufficiency. We are looking at the project in the funds so we can provide our short-term work, but our projects take 2 to 5 years because we cannot have mature cycles. So the business can go on by itself. So a 5-year project, in the 3rd or 4th year, we can generate a sustainability so the communities can support themselves. For example, technical assistance, the small producer cannot pay for technical assistance. So we have to make the project viable, so to the cocoa that they're going to plant. So after 4 years, they can have a revenue and they will start to pay for technical service. Not in full, maybe, but they have the opportunity. So the sons and daughters of these producers can be the future workforce for technical assistance. So you can take learning. So the idea is to create 2 schools in order to prepare these young people simultaneously. So we have to think about the 3 impacts for those who are making the development, the funds, or the state. But from the community perspective, we have to look at the 3 aspects: social, environmental, and economic. Excellent. Well, Josiane is connected here. Josiane, now since you are here, we are in our last 5 minutes. And I would like to hear from you about how do you think the Tikuna people can support the industries of alternative proteins? There are some questions here. That was from Jonas, and the idea is to understand not only the impact in the community, but how the community impacts the industry. Let's see if the connection works. Hello, Gustavo. Well, I didn't understand Joanita's question because of my connection, and your voice is frozen here, so I cannot understand anything. Can you repeat the question? Well, the question is from Jonas, is how do you think the Tikuna people can support these studies in the industries of alternative proteins? It's not only how the industry is supporting the traditional people, but how the traditional people is bringing innovation to the Brazilian industries. Well, at first, the indigenous peoples, in order to gain trust, to take their products out was not an easy task. We had to take the project and show the results and engage them as much as we want. This is what we want. Because that's what they always say, that you come and then you leave, you abandon us, but this is not what the project wants. What we want is to show them that they are capable of generating revenue in their own work, with the way to work with the technique and knowledge that they are going to apply to the work, potentializing their own work. I think this is important. And for this small group, we can make them aware and we can do this work together. If we can see two regions, for example, one is a little more advanced than the others, but in the Solomon's River region, we can find a serious problem because the indigenous population can take the lead and offer their products to the market. There is a problem with the influence of religion, for example. This is a serious problem that we are going through here. The church is trying to exploit the people and make them stop speaking their own language, for example. So we are having a lot of problems with the church here. So the efforts to be recognized, they need support to potentialize the work of the women that work with agriculture, with fishing, and with care with the lands. And now they have a broad vision. And I think that their work is important because it will bring quality in their own product. So I think this is important. And it would be good to make them aware and to sensitize them, and so the science can gain strength and the community can gain visibility. Yeah, Josiane, we are not hearing you anymore, but I think you can understand what you said. Thank you very much. And we are getting to the last 4 minutes of our forum here. So I would like you to have 1 minute for your final remarks. So Josiane, we can start with you. You have 1 minute, and then I give to Juanita and Ariane to finish.
First, I would like to thank you for the invitation. Thank all the participants of this beautiful event. This is the first time that I, as a woman, have participated of such an important forum. The work that the indigenous peoples and especially women are doing in the Solimões River region is being recognized. So we have been working together so we can build a better world for all of us, walking hand in hand with research. This is very important. Science has promoted several changes for the well-being of the population in Brazil and in the world, and science needs to be valued. The indigenous population give a lot of value to Western science, as we call it, And we also value traditional indigenous science. They both have to work together so we can reach a better world for everyone. Thank you. Thank you, Josiane. I also thank my colleagues from the panel, the invitation for the event. I see this as a first step in healthy solutions and in their point of view. And Josiane, I'm together with you. Academia wants to help the community, the riverside communities, to have quality products for these proteins that are traditionally indigenous. We can help with science to transform them in a product that is of the interest of the industry, because we really need to make this network, really have to make this chain that each supports the next one, and it's circular for it to be really circular. And to I want to ask for Joanita's help as a representative of the industry, so we can give back to the supplier of the raw material with science together, making this really circulate in this sense for these proteins to be good for everyone. Thank you. Gustavo, Ariane, Josiane, thank you very much. This has been enlightening. We see the great opportunity that we have. We only affirm it actually. We have to be together. Congratulations for the organization of the event. This content is excellent, is focusing on all the important issues. I want to comment on a sentence that we saw. Cannot be under the risk of all this raw material of the Amazon biodiversity to leave there without added value. So the communities will not have return on that. So we have to invest on research and development and to seek collective solutions. This is maybe our greatest conclusion here. Communities are here. How can we make all of this work? Gustavo is also here making this happen. Thank you, Joanita. For sure, it's very honorable to be a part of this project and to learn with these initiatives that are very interesting. We think that alternative proteins industry has new solutions, but we have to be humble enough to see that it's not actually that new. We have a lot of traditional knowledge that can be used as basis and teach and guide this type of research and development. I thank you. Got to know some interesting projects today. This has been the 10th panel of the forum, and we discussed alternative proteins and biodiversity in the Amazon. I know we haven't been able to answer all the questions, but I invite all of you to connect, find each other on LinkedIn and other social media, and we are at your disposal. GFI is also here to collaborate and to write this chapter. I close our panel here, thanking for the organization of the event. And what I see here is the capacity that us Brazilians have of taking over this history of the Amazon biodiversity and write it as we want it to be written, for our industry to be each day more competitive and to gain innovation, and also to keep the forest standing and have a positive social economical impact. We have a capacity of developing a food network that is better, more interesting, and bringing much more positive impact than what we have today. So congratulations to all the panelists that brought these very interesting projects to us. Thank you, Joanita, for your comments. And Rodrigo, because he had to leave early, but he also participated. Stay tuned in our forum because we still have a lot of nice things to come. Thank you for your participation. Thank you. Goodbye.